Hey, everybody. Welcome to Backups Won't Stop Ransomware. It's not a very interesting title. I feel like it should have like a superhero reference or something.
I don't know if I could come up with one really fast.
I don't know. Yeah. Mr. Backup Captain America, whatever. Does anybody else find it funny that Captain America's costume has the Puerto Rican flag on it?
Well, yeah. We're gonna move on.
So today we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. This is basically going to be a conversation between Bill and Eric with jokes by Kevin.
Oh no, you're supposed to be in charge here.
Wait, I'm supposed to be in charge.
I think we have questions specifically for you.
So. Yeah, I know. So we're going to start with. We're going to lead off with those.
They've been Americans since before Cap was born. Yes,
that's right.
Exactly, Tom. So, dang, that is an odd picture of me.
Yeah, well, we thought we'd scour the internet and see what we could find. We decided to use an actual picture of you and not somebody else who is named Kevin Johnson, because there are a bunch of them.
There are a bunch of them.
We have Kevin here, who everybody knows, but just in case you didn't know, he now makes ukuleles. He is an incredible cybersecurity expert as well. Everybody knows that. Makes the instruments, but doesn't play it. We're hoping he does.
So for everybody to, this ukulele is the one he's referencing.
Yep.
I decided I wanted to learn how to make a ukulele, so I did. The problem is I have absolutely zero musical talent. I can't keep time. So I don't know how to play the ukulele. So I hung it on the wall.
It's a good place. We get to look at it, strum the strings every once in a while.
It's a good place for it. Yeah.
I'm also joined here by Bill, who, as when he's not pen testing, he's a farmer. He knows how to protect his chickens just as much as he does data from pests and intruders. So no problem there.
Yep.
And then last is me. I like to say I'm a paladin at heart. I'm here to make sure and help you how to defend for your data and systems. So we've got a good broad variety of people here. Once again, Kevin to lead the absolute expertise.
Can I ask, is my picture the biggest because I'm fat?
No, you're the biggest.
Is this are you making fun of my weight?
So I actually had a thought there on this one, because you always make that comment when you're doing classes that you couldn't have gotten where you are without standing on the shoulders of giants. So we
put me on your shoulders.
We reversed it. You're standing on the shoulders of,
For everybody attending, I hope you didn't expect a very professional webcast today. That is awful.
So we'll start with a couple of stats, which I'm pretty sure most people are already aware of, right? And the question is, hey, am I going to be affected by ransomware? And even if you aren't directly, and hopefully you aren't directly impacted.
You're not MGM.
You're not MGM. I was wondering who's going to bring up MGM first. Even if you aren't directly impacted, there is a high likelihood that you're going to be impacted indirectly. One of your suppliers is going to be hit. Somebody is going to be hit. It is ramping up remarkably well, right? When we look at the total number of attacks, yes, this data is a little bit old because they're still compiling 2023 because we're only 9 months through, right? Attacks were up between 2020 and 2021, even more between 2021 and 2022. I bet it's going to look the same when we see the end of this year.
Well, and I do think it's important to acknowledge that when we say things like 37% of organizations are affected by ransomware, and I'm assuming that means directly affected, right?
Yep.
And these are not numbers we made up, right? But I'm going to assume that is 37% of organizations that are talking about it.
Yep.
Right? Because I know I get phone calls from people and they're like, hey, we had this happen. What do we do? And it's like, okay, well, have you called it? No, I don't want to tell anybody. There's still that stigma of not letting people know it happened.
Yeah, a friend of mine, their company was shut down for 3 days about a month ago because of ransomware, and didn't say anything, just oops, there it was.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
But anyways, so there, Kevin already said 37%. Hey, they have been affected. 32% of that 37%, or 10% of I don't know how you break that down, paid the ransom, but those that paid it only got 65. Only 65% of them got their data back. Thus, leading to the should you pay it? We'll cover that.
I'm actually pretty surprised that many people who paid got the data back.
Yep. There's a lot of questions to cover.
Yeah,
and then just in general, the cost to recover is becoming worse, right? There's so many things to take into account when you say I've recovered from ransomware. The loss of whatever you're doing, trying to get your data back. This doesn't necessarily count I paid a ransom. This is just loss of productivity, trying to get systems back, all of that good stuff. The reason we actually have this, we wanted to talk about this, is over the last couple of years, we at Secure Ideas have had a large number of our clients come to us and say, we want you to evaluate if we're ready for a ransomware attack. I'm like, okay, sure. We'll be happy to walk through this. We'll be happy to see what's going on. And the first thing they say is, all right, yep, we have backups. We're good to go. That's what we want to focus on, our backups. And my immediate thought is, wait, whoa. That is important. Backups are very, very important for you to be able to recover in a worst case scenario. But that is not what you want to be hedging your bets on, right? That is the worst place to be, is recovery. Mm-hmm. So we want to talk about all of the extra parts in here that just come up with before I have a backup. And so along that line, when we say you have backups, what's the next thing that comes in your mind, Bill or Kevin? Like, hey, you have backups. That's great. You're making backups. But what do we need to do now? What's first in your mind?
Click the link.
Okay. Click the link. Yes. Make sure the backups are working by clicking the link. Perfect.
So
perfect.
Training. So that's what I heard when Kevin said click the link. I heard training. That's what I heard.
Okay. I'll agree with that.
Fishy.
See, for me, the first thing I think of is exactly different wording to what you just said, but is that to me, they're focusing on a reaction. Mm-hmm. Right, because having backups is great, but it's only useful as I got popped. Now let me try to restore, and which is another thing that we often ask when they say I have backups. It's like, did you verify the backup works?
Can you actually use it?
Can you absolutely use it? Right. I used to work for a company that will remain nameless, Blue Cross of Florida. And it's on my resume. It's right. And every year we would do DR testing, and every year they would find. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying they couldn't recover, but every year we would find something that people thought they had systems for, or backups for, or plans for. And then when the the rubber meets the road, we found out, oh, that backup isn't current enough, or there's this other issue with it, or bluntly, the question I often ask people when they say I have backups, I'm like, of everything?
Yep.
Right? Are you backing up everything necessary? Well, I back up the database. Great. What about the application in front of that database? Oh, we'll just redeploy it. Where are you redeploying it from?
Yep.
I used to work for a company, which I won't name, that they had a Visual Basic 6 CD.
Ready to go.
Ready to go. And it was for one DLL that the primary application that the entire business was running on. There was this one DLL that had been written in Visual Basic 6. And nobody else knew how to do it. Nobody knew they didn't have any money to upgrade it. And so we had a Visual Basic 6 CD. And their DR plan was somebody would buy a laptop, install Visual Basic 6, compile the DLL from source code, and then redeploy it to the new server.
Wow.
And I got hired. One of my first jobs was to verify that I could build a development environment on my laptop. And Visual Basic 6 was no longer supported on the operating system we were running on laptops.
Yeah. Kind of a small problem.
And like, okay, what do I do? And everybody panicked because nobody knew what to do with that.
Well, and beyond just that, one of my favorite questions is, okay, great. You have recovery plans. Do you have one that actually can state from beginning to end, this is what I need to bring up first, followed by this, followed by this? Every app tends to have a recovery plan, which they practice. I can recover my app. That's great. But what happens if, worst case scenario, AD is down because it got corrupted or whatever it might be? What is the order you need to bring these things up? Hey, our recovery strategy is we're going to stand up and bring up a image on our hypervisor. Well, great. Does the hypervisor require AD? How about the network? How about this? Right? You get into these great circular loops. So yeah, that holistic recovery strategy. But the backups themselves, usable. Who all has access to them? How many times have we gone onto a network where, okay, darn, I couldn't get to domain admin. All right, doesn't happen very often, but I couldn't get to domain admin. So let's look if we can get to the backups. And there we are. We now have access to the system that's being used to back up everything.
Yep.
Right?
How many times have we, from the backups, been able to restore their primary system to a virtual machine on our machine and just attack that directly instead of attacking their system, right?
Yeah. And where are these backups stored that you're making? You know, everything is locally on site. Okay, maybe not the best. There's a lot of push these days for resilience. Resilience is great, absolutely. Recovery is slightly different than resilience, maybe just a little bit. You know, and so have a plan. There's this big, I love the term immutable storage, you know, which is just, we can't change it after we make it. But, you know, there are different ways of getting it. You don't need to buy the product, but making sure that you have some storage somewhere that is available to recover from in the right order, right? You need to have backups that you validated. I can get to it. I can actually recover it. I know how to recover it.
Have you tested your backup process to make sure that it actually works like it's supposed to?
Exactly. I have backups. The console said I backed everything up. We're good to go, guys.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. No.
We're set.
Yeah. So that recovery also very, very important. So, but I think. Oh, go ahead.
Well, one of the questions that I see quite often with ransomware, right, is I talk to people and you know, I have a slightly different perspective because not just as a pen tester, consultant, whatever, but I also do expert witness work. And as an expert witness for a variety of organizations, I'm evaluating the results of a breach. I'm evaluating the results of what happened because there's a lawsuit or, you know, charges or whatever. And the number of times that the processes that they documented on how to do the restoration or what systems are where are on the systems that are encrypted.
Yeah, I was about to say, where's my backup? Where's my recovery strategy stored?
Yeah. I have this document that outlines step by step, and I've tested it and I've verified it, and it all works, and that's awesome, and that's great. And where is it? Oh, it's on my laptop, the one that's encrypted. And,
it's on the network,
right? I mean, let's pick on MGM right now. And I want to be very clear.
Yep.
Okay. One, I am not victim blaming here. Two, I have not vetted this fact, but there is a job posting that is going around. And what I haven't vetted is I haven't vetted that it was actually posted by MGM, right? Okay. So somebody as a joke or a prank could have posted this. But currently there is a job posting going around that is asking for a Red Hat. Yep. What now, Tom? Yes, it's a Red Hat system administrator. And what they're looking for is somebody who is able to work 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, and be on call for the other 14 hours a day to rebuild from scratch their Red Hat environment to recover. Now, they are offering, according to the job posting, $100 an hour if you're on a 1099. Now, what's odd by that is the job posting actually says it's $110 an hour. But so let's go with $100 an hour. $100 an hour, 10 hours a day in probably the most high pressure situation you could be in. We were just compromised. We're losing billions of dollars a minute because, let's be clear, casinos aren't nonprofits. And their solution, according to this job posting, is we're going to rebuild from scratch. Right? Wow. That's scary. As somebody who has been the on-call person, right? Oh man.
No, that is not where you want to be. But actually, that brings another thinking about MGM as well in general, right? Yeah. You talk about, hey, we're going to be able to recover. We know these systems. We've secured these systems. We think we can recover. What happens if you have to take those offline because you're worried about the outbreak spreading, right? Because that's MGM was hit, yes, but it's not as if it just ran rampant through everything. They shut down systems to protect them, right? So now we're going to shut things down to make sure it doesn't get encrypted. So we still have something. What does this do to our business, when we're going through it?
Oh, and what about systems you don't control?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Systems. I've worked incidents where we've isolated stuff that's going through the network, and then it's come back because there was those 4 printers that really had full Windows machines connected to them that were managed by a vendor, and the attackers still had access to them, and they leveraged those to get back onto the rest of the network. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was actually my next thought, because I didn't remember seeing anything about it. Did they find out what the actual root cause of that was?
For the MGM breach, it has not been publicized yet. I have heard rumors from people I know that may or may not be working on it, and I won't say them now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's not the help desk reset somebody's password.
That was a rumor that was going around. My understanding is that may be part of it, but not a full story.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true. Again, I want to be very clear. I am not working the case. I have nothing to do with it. That is right.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting background.
So when you flip back and forth, it shows your
wallpaper.
background picture.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I'll remember that. Okay. So let me see. But here's another good question for you that I think about when we come to recovery, that I like to ask everybody. How are you going to talk to each other? What's your plan to communicate with each other during a disaster? Right. Sure. This is not ransomware specific, but email. Good to go. Good to go. Yeah.
That email have links.
Yeah. Click on more links. These days with the push to cloud, there is maybe some separation with your collaboration platform, but maybe not. Right.
I will tell you that as a pen tester, when we've done work on jobs where part of the test is to determine whether or not they're detecting us, I've sat on machines and watched the response. Right. I was on this one test, and this story is from back when I was at InGuardians, but I still think it's one of my favorite pen test incident response stories. I'm testing this organization. Within the first half hour, 45 minutes of the test, I have root access from the internet to their primary hosting environment. I'm in there as root. I logged in, and what was great was it was an ISP, a hosting provider, and they had a client interface that the clients could manage their systems. And I went to it, and it had a login page, and the login page, type in your username, type in your password, click here if you have problems logging in. So I had problems logging in because I didn't have credentials. And so I clicked here, and it showed me documentation. And I searched for password in the documentation, and it said, if you're logging in as the admin, log in with your admin account. If this is the first time you've logged in, the password is, and it gave me a password that was root and a password. And I logged in as it because they had never changed it. And that made me think, wait, the username is root. I wonder, SSH is exploded? That's not
exploding. We're going to say exploding.
Exploding. Let me SSH into this box. And so I did. I SSH'd in as root, and I have access to the system. Okay, now this is first day of the test, right? We had a late start that night, so we were doing overnight testing. And so it's like 6:30, 7 p.m. by the time I reach out to our contact. Our contact answers the phone and says, hey, that sounds great. Can I call you back tomorrow? I'm like, that's weird. Yeah, I guess you can call me back tomorrow. And so we then proceeded to continue to compromise the rest of the network and test things and do all this stuff overnight. The next morning, contact calls me back early in the morning. He's like, hey, thanks. Hope everything's going good. I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's going great. I'm having a good time. And the guy says, yeah, so what was this about? You got in. And so what it turned out was he was on his first date with somebody. And I guess they were getting along. It was it was going. Dinner was nice, and he did not want to interrupt dinner to deal with this. So I'm like, yeah, I'm on these systems. We're in whatever. So he says, okay, I'll let the IR team know. And I'm thinking to myself, man, it's 12 hours later. This is really not the time to like now let IR team know. So the IR team logged into the box. I watched them reset root's password, and I watched them disconnect from the box. So I grabbed the shadow file and I cracked the new password. And the new password was weaker than the old password. But that, like,
Fun.
IR fails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Similar, Windows, wonderful Windows, doesn't actually get rid of your permissions until you log out of the box. So as long as you stay logged into something, you're good to go, even if they start changing, your permissions or removing group membership, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same general problem.
Yep.
So let me see. So backups, definitely there's a lot more to backups than just saying we have them. But I think we've started down the path. We don't want to be stuck at backup and recovery, right? So what's the bigger one? And I'm not going to get into privileged access because that's cheating. Or, hey, are you actually like vuln management? Do you know what's patched, what's not patched? How many people are aware of? We'll go simple. Who has access to what on your network, right? Without maliciousness, right? Without excessive privileged access. If that one poor user who's been in your company for 30 years clicks the wrong link, what's going to happen to your environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what else? How many different things are susceptible to ransomware now? I think everything at this point, right? Linux, SQL. Yeah. Is there anything that's not
vulnerable to ransomware?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything.
Yes, something that doesn't have storage.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. We're set.
And I say that as a joke, but there are systems that every time they boot, they pull an image down and run off of that image. Yes, you can encrypt that. Yes, you can. But then all they do is turn it off, turn it back on, and it's got the new image, right? Yeah. Now, I want to be very clear. Don't then associate that with VDIs. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, the VDI is safe because every time you log in, it's a virtual desktop. It's like, no, that virtual desktop still has storage and it has access to things with storage. And right. So even though every time I log in, it spins it up, right? That is the other one that gets me is connected storage, right? So we've seen cases where, was it Google Drive that had that tool that it treated it like a local drive, right? And so if you got hit with ransomware, it could encrypt the files that were in your Google Drive.
Right, because
your local system treated it as a G drive for... Matter of fact, I think it was G drive, now that I've said that out loud.
So, yeah. Yeah, connected storage or yet again, not just connected storage in that way, but also the requirements going back. I'm on this system that, it is running something and it needs to reach out to this other thing back here. And who knows how those two are talking to each other at times. I know that when we find data paths for our clients, when we're doing pen tests, it quite often is not the expected one that other people are using. So happens, unfortunately, quite often. So knowing who has access to what and how, that's not dealt with very well. What would be another big one? All right. Well, I know Kevin wants to talk about preparing your users.
No, I don't want to talk about preparing users at all.
No?
Users suck.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
No, I mean, to me, this is and I just ranted about it on Twitter the other day. A lot of people think that the right way to prepare for ransomware is to teach your users about ransomware and why it's bad and how to protect the organization. And I'm not saying that's not good, but it's not as effective as what I think the right way to do it is to teach people how to protect themselves and their families and friends at home. Because if they change their behaviors to safer behaviors at home, they are likely to have the same behaviors at work, even if they don't work from home, right? But I hate to say it, but as an employee of many organizations in my life, every single time they sat me down and said, okay, the company is prime and you got to protect it. You got to do this. And I kind of tuned them out. And I'm a security focused person, right?
So it's funny you mention that, because at one job I did in the past when I did compliance, one of my responsibilities was to go through and train, create the cybersecurity training or the awareness training that we had to do for the compliance piece of this. And one thing that I found really, really quickly is that if the only real way to change people's behavior is to find a way to make sure that it impacts the person, as an adult. When someone says, hey, this is important, my first question is, why does this matter to me, right? Why is this important to me? And if you can draw that connection, similar to what Kevin was saying about teach them to protect things at home, that behavior will naturally change and they'll start looking at those things at work too. Yeah, I highly.
And I want to be clear, when Bill says, make it affect them, we don't mean punish them.
No,
right?
No.
We don't mean, hey, bad user.
That's negative reinforcement. That wasn't what I was thinking of.
And I've talked to organizations the number of times, through IANS or whatever, we get the most conceitedly named service ever, the Ask an Expert service. And you get these questions like, okay, if somebody falls for this phishing attack 3 times, what's the penalty we should do? Should we fire them? Should we do this? And it was like, really?
Better training.
You're going to fire everybody. It's like, if you're worried about people falling for phishing, stop letting them email. Right? Thank you.
I've seen some good ones. Some that I would have been tempted to click on, even seeing this stuff on a regular basis.
I was just doing a scoping call with a customer. We were talking about phishing and social engineering and whether it should be in scope for the pen test.
Right.
And I said, as I say all the time to people, unless you have a requirement to do that level of testing, it tends to not be worth the money, because the reality is people will click things. I will. You send me a good enough email about Star Wars, I'm in. Right? Done. Here's the ruse that will get me to click. A sequel to the Han Solo movie.
Interesting.
If you announce a sequel to the Solo movie, because let's be blunt, when this Han Solo movie ended, when Darth Maul appeared to Kira, that was like, yes, awesome, I want that, right?
That's a good point.
You sent me an email that said, hey, did you see Disney and Lucasfilm announced Solo 2, right? Which is a dumb name. Don't call it that. But I'm clicking. I want to see that. Yeah. And yes, I expect later on today to get a whole bunch of emails. That I'm not going to click.
See that. Links in your future, Kevin. Lots of links. So I'm trying to think. So along the way of educating users, and I think you covered this already, right? The negative reinforcement. Hey, 3, and we're going to kick them out. We're going to force them back into training. I don't know any organizations that are doing the positive of, hey, not only did they not click it, but they told me about this thing that's a phishing, and we reward them, right? We praise them for this activity. I don't know. I can think of maybe one organization that works in that way, where if you actually forward it on, they let you know it was a good thing.
I know a few. I know a few organizations.
Yeah, there's a handful.
Another thing that I'd recommend doing is, when we talk about education, don't educate users. I mean, don't educate. We like ignorant users. Well, as pen testers, we do. But educate your developers. Because one of the main reasons that ransomware and phishing and the like works is that we build the majority of our systems to require you to click a link to get to it, right? I get a notification from my bank, and we're moving banks not because of this, for other reasons, but it's ridiculous. They give you a link. It looks like a phishing attack, right? How do I go and find out if it's real? I don't click the link. I go to the site. I log in to the Chase site. Oops, did I say that out loud? And I see if the same notification is there, right? My personal account that's at ViStar, they don't send me a link. They send me a notification that there is a notice that I need to deal with, something, right? An update, whatever. And it literally says in the email, right? Go to the online banking site. Doesn't click. There's no link. There's nothing there. There has to be a way in every system, and this is the education for developers, is as you build these systems, give the user the directions they have to follow, but don't give them the link.
Yeah.
Right? Have them come to the site. Have them go through a trusted mechanism. Right? And I don't expect that we're going to get rid of all links in emails. That's an unreasonable expectation. But if we start addressing the problem that way, we're going to make things better in the long run.
Fair enough. And that went a different direction than I thought it was going to go. I like that direction better.
Now I'm worried where you thought it was.
I thought we were going to, unfortunately, pick on the poor devs and SQL DBAs because they tend to have all sorts of access with their accounts. And
oh yeah, they do.
Yeah, and then just go right through.
But I wouldn't pick on them for that because that's what they need to do their job, or they need to do their job, right?
That just makes them a target because of that.
Absolutely a target, right? Yep. That, I mean, the three of us know it, that when we do penetration testing, we often go after the technical staff, the security team. I love compromising security teams. Right? Because, you know,
I always feel
do
bad
what I say, not what I do. I'm sorry.
When it's our contact, that's
well, I feel really bad when it's a contact.
That's true. That is true.
I don't feel bad. It's just an awkward conversation. Hey, your password sucks.
So I actually do feel a little bit bad because sometimes that piece of it gets put into the report.
Yeah.
And so you're right. So now there are potentially some internal stress to deal with.
We try to handle that nicely, you know. We try to be polite. Because let's be clear, like I said earlier, everybody's going to click. Everybody's going to fall for it. Everybody's going to make a mistake if the ruse is right. Right?
Yeah. Okay. And legitimately, if it is a phishing campaign and I can tell that it's a phishing campaign, there's a likelihood I'm going to click it anyway, just to click on it. And
with my real privileged account too.
No,
right?
no, not with that.
Sure.
You know the ones that are asking for like, what's your username and password?
Yeah.
And you just put junk in there.
I just put yours, Bill.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. When I click those, I put your username and password.
Wait, password.
How did you know? Passphrase.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Talking about social engineering, and I know this is a bit of a tangent, but I was just at a conference with DevUp out in St. Louis. It was a great conference, right? We had a booth. I'm sitting there at the booth. I'm talking to this person. They walk up and they're like, "Oh yeah, pen tester hackers!" And this kid, I say kid, he was probably 30, and I'm old, so. This kid's like, well, you know, I've got a pretty strong password. And honestly, I have no idea why this guy thought that was the right challenge. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what is it? And he started to tell me. And I stopped. I'm like, whoa, wait. Don't say that out loud.
No.
And he was like, oh. And he stops. And I'm like, okay, let's ask. Like, how many characters is it? And he tells me. And I'm like, okay, cool. How many of those characters are uppercase letters? And he's like, 1. I'm like, the first one? And he goes, yeah.
And it ends in 2 numbers.
And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, how many numbers are there? And he's like, oh, there's 4. I'm like, oh, okay. Are they 2023? And he went, yeah. I'm like, is the last character an exclamation mark? He went, how did you know? And like, I want to pretend like I'm a genius, right? Like it's hacker magic, but the reality is that's typical, right? Like
they always, if there's a special character, almost always it's an exclamation
mark.
Yep.
At the end.
Yep. At the end, because we're very excited about passwords.
Yeah.
So
woohoo! Exclamation mark, and it's not they're excited; it's they're mad.
Oh.
Because this is the 4th password they've tried, and they finally got one that the password strength meter lets them use.
Yeah,
finally hits. Yeah,
it's awful. It's awful. We build systems without paying attention to how the users are going to interact with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, I've for years, and I'm like I said, I'm old, fat, and balding, but for years, I always heard about fight against shadow IT. That was the big buzzword for a while, right? And now it's okay. We got to make sure people are doing the right thing and zero trust and blah blah blah. And it all boils down to we've made processes too difficult or too much of a irritation for people to follow them, right? And so what do? They start to go around them. That's why, as dumb as the text message that says, hey, it's Kevin, your CEO, and I'm in a meeting and I can't help it, I have an emergency, can you run and get me Apple gift cards, works. Because the systems are so messed up that people are like, oh, I don't know, maybe he needs Apple gift cards, let me go get them. And they go and they buy them. And it's the same thing with ransomware, right? I do have to say, did you see the ransomware screenshot I shared the other day in random?
Oh no! Now I need to.
So it looked like a ransomware. It looks like ransomware pop up, right? But it says we have not encrypted any of your systems. Instead, we have installed hidden copies of Oracle database to random servers. And if you don't pay us within the next 12 hours, we're going to notify Oracle that you're running unlicensed software. Nice. And when I saw it, it was like on Twitter, somebody posted it. When I saw it, I thought, oh man, I'd rather they encrypted my files.
Yeah, I know. $10,000 a license. No. Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
So this is their next unscheduled encryption event.
Yeah, unscheduled encryption event. I like
unscheduled encryption event.
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think of where to go. So, okay, I know where to go. Where to go from here? Where do we go from that? But actually, it kind of all links together, right? So we said that backups are the last place you want to be, right? We don't want to have to use them. So a lot of it is ransomware is just an immediate feedback that your cybersecurity and incident response is perhaps not working as well as you'd like it to be working.
Yeah.
So you need to have a plan, right? This is probably the last part that I see quite often when we're talking to our clients. And I said, okay, great. You have your backups. What's your plan if you start some sort of outbreak, right? Do you have an idea of what you want to do, how it's going to happen? How do you plan on detecting it? How do you detect it? Yeah. How do you deal with this?
Yeah.
And, while there's way too many options, I think, and not every option fits every group in any way, shape, or form, I think it's you having a plan is critically important, right? How are you going to notify your users if you decide to start shutting things down to protect it, notifying them that it's going to happen or asking them to do it? Because once again, we've just trained everybody, don't fall for me calling you saying that this is something you need to do. If we suddenly start calling you and telling you to shut it down, are you actually going to do it? Right.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say, so we often try to quantify risk, right? What is the risk of this happening? And unfortunately, ransomware tends to propagate really, really quickly. And so when you go through and do this came to mind as you were talking, that when people are going through to actually test those processes, make sure they work, you want to look at how quickly and how effectively you can respond, because it's not just the likelihood of it happening, but how quickly it's going to propagate. So when you're getting that detection, what does that response look like? And yeah, I'm thinking time. I think time is going to be the biggest enemy that you're going to deal with.
Oh yeah.
And so you don't want this to be something that I have to look up this SOP. I had to look this up and it's going to take me 20 minutes to decipher what my process should be versus an instant reaction, someone that's been trained to actually respond to this, to make sure this is one of the top things that they'll train on a regular basis.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I guess one of the last things I could think of here are okay, what do we have as other options in case things go really south, right? Our backups, unfortunately, we were taking backups, but we didn't do the other steps, or we weren't able to catch it. What are our next choices, right? What do we need to be aware of? Or what should we be thinking about? What happens if the initial pre-attack code is on your system?
Yes, that is absolutely a problem.
So
it's been staged.
Yeah, something that's been staged and is going to happen at some random time. This goes back to that whole idea of incident response in general, right? When things are going south very quickly, how are you going to figure out what, where, and when? Do you have a process or something that you can go to or start looking at? Once again, hopefully not on a shared drive where you have to try and get to it, print it out or something that you can reference and start moving through very quickly. Once again, I don't know what's going on with, we talked about them earlier, and their name, not MGE. Yeah, no. MGM. I couldn't think of letters. There's like too many letters here. MGM, right? Where they were shutting things down to protect them. How do you make sure it's good before you bring it back online, right? What's your process for that? Validating everything's good to go.
Yeah, especially on the sensitive items, the critical items.
Yep. So cyber insurance, ransomware protection, good or bad, Kevin?
There you go. That was a surprise question we had.
That was a surprise question. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, it's awesome option. Let's be clear. We carry cyber insurance at Secure Ideas. We carry it because some of our contracts require us to, not because we believe there's any chance the insurance company will ever pay out to help us. Don't get me wrong. There have been insurance payments for things like ransomware and stuff like that. But, oh, my God. Yeah, that's... Yeah, get some.
Get some. What about... How do you feel about should people pay the ransom or not?
So
this is such a slippery question. I know there's like
I don't think it's a slippery question at all. My opinion is don't pay the ransom.
Okay.
But that's easy for me to say, right? Like sitting here with I almost said unencrypted systems, and that doesn't mean what I was about to say. Unintentionally encrypted systems. Like all of my systems are encrypted by us,
right?
Not by a third party. How about that? It's easy for me to say that, not being in the situation that I have downtime going on right now, and I don't know what my recovery path is. Right? I understand the drive to pay. I understand. I don't like it. And part of the reason I don't like it is because the recovery from after paying is so small, right? It's not cheap, right? Did you see the conversations that were going on about, was it Lockbit? I'm probably screwing that up, but there's conversations going on where the people who run that ransomware framework are saying that the minimum ransom to pay is 3% of your annual revenue.
Wow.
And they won't accept less than that. And they actually recommend that it should be 5% when they demand the revenue. Because they built the system and then they basically sell it to other teams that do the attack, and then they get a percentage of that's what, right? It's an entire economy, which is fascinating to me. But
well, it's monetized cryptography, essentially.
That is exactly what it is. So I would prefer your path to be restoration. Bluntly, if paying the ransom is your only way to get the data back, you haven't failed at security, you failed at IT. Right? That's just my opinion. And again, right, I'm on my high horse in my ivory tower, or whatever you want to say, but I believe that the basics of running a modern system is having a way to recover that modern system. If you can't recover the system, are you really running it well? I say no.
Again, different than resilience. Actually recover, very important.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, there's all the other potential issues that go along with paying it, right? Number one, we're reinforcing that, hey, this is a good thing and people can get money this way.
We're reinforcing that we're willing to pay that money.
Yeah, right. We're willing to pay it. Let's do it again.
Yep.
Heck, what about those poor people who I'm going to pay, and then oops, for some reason you can't actually recover the data.
Not getting them. They don't give you a refund. There's no warranty on your ransomware.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I bought this from you. It didn't work.
No, it worked well. The unencryption didn't work. Well, or what about that? Was it in Norway, the hosting company? Like the biggest host company in the area. They got hit with ransomware, and they basically had to go to their customers and say, by the way, here's 3 other hosting companies you should go to because we're dead. Yep. Right? Like, we're not going to be able to recover this. We're not going to get your stuff back. This is it. And my understanding is, again, I don't know, but my understanding is they're one of the examples. They paid and didn't get the data back. And that's the biggest issue is that's the money they had, right? Now they don't have the money to buy the new system, to get to right. Like, that was budget.
Yeah.
You know,
I was actually doing some reading on some of this with OFAC. Are you familiar with OFAC? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's like the Office of Foreign Assets Control or something like that.
Yeah.
But they deal with sanctions. And so there was a question about, can it be illegal? Like, are there situations where it can be illegal to actually pay the ransom? And from what I was reading, it turns out that because they deal with sanctions, right? So if you've got national security interests, if you've got foreign groups, people, nations that have sanctions on them, there's a potential that by paying that out, there could be some legal waters to navigate.
Yeah. The Russian ransomware groups. You pay a Russian ransomware group. Have you just helped fund the Ukrainian war?
Yeah, yep,
right.
That's the question.
And I'm not saying I'm not arguing the politics. I'm not right. Have you helped fund terrorism? Have you? Because I'll tell you right now, if I'm a prosecutor that's trying to make a name for myself, that's how I'm going to make a name for myself.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen where the federal government has come out and said, we don't recommend that you pay, but we won't charge you if you do. I don't know. The legalities of paying is an interesting question, and I'm not a lawyer except on Twitter.
Yes. But a great one on Twitter, right?
So, all right. Well, we only have about 7 minutes left here?
Something like that.
7. Is there anything else really big we wanted to cover here? I'm trying to think of other things. Oh, wait, I did think of one. What about ransomware negotiators?
Yeah.
Insurance. Let me be very clear, though. You better look at your insurance policy about what they require you to do, and not just ransomware negotiation, but a lot of insurance policies require that you go through them for IR teams and stuff like that for them to pay.
Fair enough.
Are there any restrictions for like due diligence or negligence clauses?
I'm not a lawyer except on Twitter. And, I can see the argument that if you're not able to restore, that you were negligent in your duty to protect your customers' data.
I can see that.
I'll point at the Wyndham case, and I'm not making fun of Wyndham, right? Wyndham Worldwide was hacked 3 times, supposedly. The Federal Trade Commission sued, and this is years ago, right? The Federal Trade Commission sued them because the FTC said they did not meet industry standards at protecting the client data. And the clients were U.S. citizens. And so the Federal Trade Commission had, what's the word? I'm trying to think of the word. Authority. That's not the right word. But
jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction, thank you. Yeah, they had the jurisdiction to charge them. And it was a civil case, and Wyndham lost.
Wow.
Right? That was a pretty big settlement. I imagine the same argument if your system is hit with ransomware and you're important, right? And I'm not, again, not an attorney, not saying this is right, this is the law, this is the way this works. I'm just saying I can see that argument, right? That's why how many of our customers have come to us and said our auditors are requiring us to go through ransomware tabletops or IR tabletops. This is something that we have to look at on a regular basis. Why? Because it's a real attack, right? Yep. And it's a real attack the pen testers aren't going to do. You're not going to hire me to break in and encrypt a whole bunch of your stuff, right?
but on the other hand, if I can break in and get access to stuff, once again, it is the same thing. It's just we aren't doing that step of making the data inoperable for you, right?
Yeah.
Everything that we do is another same attack vector that can be leveraged by ransomware.
So I say, since we're getting close, I'd like to open it up to see if there's any questions we can answer, anything we can address moving forward. I want to say I appreciate you all hanging out with us this afternoon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. On a Friday, on a beautiful weekend.
Oh yeah.
I'm traveling to Orlando on Sunday for InfoSec World, and then I'm going to GurCon on Wednesday for. Man, I'm traveling too much. I'm in Orlando. I was in Cleveland yesterday, day before yesterday.
Yeah,
I go to Orlando Sunday, Grand Rapids Wednesday, Atlanta Monday.
Wow.
Busy.
Matt, are you going to GurCon? I see GurCon. Woo! Nice. We have a booth. Let's grab dinner or lunch or something, man. The booth is going to be awesome. We have an arcade cabinet thing that we're putting up and we're giving away, but it does mean that I'm going to be playing arcade games all day. And, oh, by the way, at GurCon, Chewy will be there. I'm bringing Chewy. The organizers of GurCon, Chris and Jamie, have asked for years for me to bring Chewy, and it just never worked out, and this time I'm doing it. So I'll be wandering around as Chewbacca for one of the days, part of the day.
Cool.
Love it.
Good answer, Matt. I'm bringing my truck. I'll be able to take home the
Be prepared. Must be a scout.
Yes.
So awesome. All right. Well, anyways, as we talked about today, backups are great. You need backups. Please have backups. Just there's a lot more when we're talking about ransomware than just backups.
Yeah.
All the different things that we covered. And absolutely, I think the one I want to highlight down at is the very bottom. Right. Prepare your users. Once again, it's not just don't click links. Let's try and get people thinking about how to do things at home.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
And actually, as I think about it, especially as more people tend to work at home now these days, kids doing things at home and inadvertently infecting your network at home, which then infects your corporate device or organization. Yeah. Let's definitely get people thinking about home.
Oh yeah.
Well, and there's no other questions, so I guess I'll say we'll end it here. We'll let Kevin pull down the ukulele and no, I'm sorry.
I don't know how to play it. I mean, I literally I can pull it down, and here's what I can do. I don't even know if it'll play. If you'll hear it.
Hey, we heard it.
I thought that was going to be the outro.
I don't even know if it's in tune. So I'm going to stop the recording now. Everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
We hope to see you on the next webcast.
Definitely. Thank you.